You know, when you think of like essential workers, right?
Yeah.
You picture nurses, firefighters,
Hmm.
maybe even those delivery drivers.
Yeah.
But have you ever thought about the people who keep those huge ships stocked with fish sailing smoothly?
Right.
That's what we're diving into today.
Yeah.
The world of fisheries assistant engineers.
Okay.
We've got a ton of resources from RoleCatcher.
Lots to unpack.
I know, I'm excited to get into it with you.
Yeah, it's a role that most people don't even know about, but it's really important.
Yeah.
So picture this, a giant fishing trawler hundreds of miles from land.
Okay.
The fisheries assistant engineer is like the chief engineer's right hand making sure the ship's heart.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the propulsion, the machinery, all of it runs perfectly.
Wow. So they're like a mechanic, an electrician, and a problem solver all in one.
Exactly. They keep everything running smoothly. They fix problems as they come up, and they're basically the guardians of the ship while they're out there on the open ocean.
That's a lot of responsibility.
It is. You're dealing with complex systems in a tough environment and often under strict international regulations.
Oh, yeah. International regulations. What does that mean for their job?
It adds a whole other level of complexity. They govern everything.
Yeah.
Safety standards, pollution control, even how specific equipment has to be maintained.
Wow.
So a fisheries assistant engineer needs to be on top of all those guidelines. They have to make sure that the ship is operating legally everywhere it goes.
So it's not just about being handy and fixing things. They need to be really detail-oriented and understand maritime law.
Absolutely.
That's fascinating. So it's like a floating city with its own rules and regulations. And speaking of rules, RoleCatcher really emphasizes those troubleshooting and equipment maintenance skills.
Yeah.
What kind of crazy problems might a fisheries assistant engineer run into out there?
Well, just imagine this. You're on a ship that's basically a self-contained city, often days or even weeks away from any port,
Right.
and something breaks down. A vital piece of equipment malfunctions.
Ah,
Can't just call a repair service, you're it.
makes sense.
So you need to be very resourceful, not just good with your hands, but also able to think outside the box.
It's like that old saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher mentioned how technology is becoming more and more important in this field.
Oh yeah, their industry trends section.
Yeah.
So it's not all wrenches and grease anymore.
Not at all. The shipping industry is changing fast. For example, AI-assisted navigation systems. They're becoming pretty standard now.
So a fisheries assistant engineer needs to know how to work with that kind of tech.
Absolutely. They need to be comfortable with these advanced systems, understanding not just the how, but the why behind everything.
I see. So you could be calibrating sensors 1 minute and then fixing a mechanical problem the next.
Exactly. It's a really dynamic mix of traditional engineering and cutting-edge tech.
I bet. And speaking of skills, RoleCatcher listed computers and electronics as a key one right alongside the expected mechanical aptitude.
Right.
That really shows how much the job is changing.
It does. Those AI systems we were talking about, they don't fix themselves.
That's true. It sounds like you need to be a jack of all trades to succeed as a fisheries assistant engineer.
You could say that.
It really does sound like you need to have a lot of different skills for this job.
Yeah, you could say that.
And one that I saw in RoleCatcher's guide that I didn't expect was customer and personal service.
Oh, right.
Why is that important if you're mostly working with machines in the middle of the ocean?
Well, it's easy to forget about the human side of things when you're thinking about a technical job, but a fisheries assistant engineer is part of a team.
Right.
They're constantly interacting with the chief engineer, with crewmates, with contractors, even with people from regulatory agencies.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about that.
Good communication skills are so important for building those relationships, especially in a high-pressure environment like a working ship.
That's true. So you need the technical skills to handle the equipment, but also the people skills to handle being part of a team.
That's a good way to put it. And since we're talking about skills, you mentioned the STCW certification earlier.
Right.
Just to clarify, that's the standards of training, certification, and watchkeeping.
A mouthful.
It's basically your global ticket to working on ships.
Got it. So it sounds like you're always learning in this field. It's not like you get your qualification and then you're done.
Definitely not.
RoleCatcher listed a bunch of different degrees that could lead to a career as a fisheries assistant engineer.
Yeah, they had everything from marine engineering to environmental science, even naval architecture.
So for someone just starting out, what does their career path look like?
Well, they probably won't be captaining the ship right away, but there's definitely a path towards leadership within the engineering department. A lot of people work their way up to chief engineer. Some might specialize in a particular type of vessel and become an expert on how it all works.
I see.
Others might move to jobs on land like a port engineer or a marine surveyor, using their experience in a different way.
So many options. RoleCatcher's interview guide had a ton of potential interview questions,
I bet.
but there was one that really stuck with me. How do you see technology impacting the role of a fisheries assistant engineer in the next 5–10 years?
Oh, that's a good one. It makes you think about the big picture.
Yeah, it does. Makes you think about how the industry is changing and what skills will be important in the future.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a really interesting look at a job that I didn't know much about before.
Me neither.
We learned that being a fisheries assistant engineer isn't just about fixing engines. It's about being resourceful, being comfortable with new technology, and working well with others.
It's a challenging job, but also a rewarding one.
It sounds like it.
Mhm.
And if you're interested in learning more, be sure to check out those resources from RoleCatcher. You never know, a career on the open ocean might be calling your name.